Welcome to this week's edition of World Crisis Radio. Webster Tarpley here in Washington, D.C., as always reminding you to keep up with everything at tarpley.net, tarpley.net, also your source for all of my indispensable books about the current situation, and I'll refer to some of them in the course of the broadcast today. Now, we want to get one big idea across, and it has to do with the Federal Reserve and the $600 billion that helicopter Ben Bernanke has now decided to put into circulation as a kind of liquidity stimulus. It's a hot money injection into the U.S. and world economies. Essentially, the Fed prints the money. They go and buy, essentially, toxic assets from banks, and other things. If they buy treasury bonds, that'll be great. But the idea, of course, is that they buy toxic assets. They buy derivatives that nobody else will buy. And they'll be getting their portfolio of these toxic assets well up into the, I guess by now it's the $3 trillion range. You notice they have no hesitation in coming up with what amounts to virtually unlimited amounts of 0% credit from the Fed to zombie institutions, zombie banks, in order to finance their derivatives. Now, why don't we change the nature of the way this works? Helicopter Ben talks about $600 billion of QE2, quantitative easing 2. Again, it's just more new terms for the same old nonsense of a liquidity injection. It doesn't work, as we know from the Lautenbach typology of the early 1930s, right? You can have an immediate deflationary crash. That would be the Austrian libertarian Republican view, Tea Party view. Let's have an immediate deflationary crash. That doesn't work. That destroys everything. You have the consumer-led Keynesian recovery as attempted by Pelosi. That's also a failure. But then among the failures, you've also got the hot money version, which is simply make unlimited credit available in an undifferentiated way. And, of course, it doesn't really stay in your country. It flees abroad, sinks your currency, and seeks out the highest level of speculative return in whatever hot money market there is around the world. And, of course, these are very, very dangerous markets. So let's call a halt to this failed policy. Let's go to the fourth point in the Lautenbach typology of 1931 and 1932, which is national credit creation for national infrastructure and job creation. So what I'm proposing is this. Let's grab hold of Helicopter Ben's $600 billion. Let's try to beat the drum for a political move by somebody. Somebody can at least propagandize this. I guess we're still in the propaganda phase. I couldn't claim that we're in the agitational phase on this, where we think we can get it done right away. But propagandistically, to educate people about the possibilities of a recovery is there anytime you want it. Anytime you pull together your political will and a little bit of brain power, you can get out of a world economic depression, which we're now in. Commandeer Helicopter Ben's $600 billion. Don't let Helicopter Ben give the $600 billion, which is really more like $1 trillion, I think, in most estimates. Don't let Helicopter Ben give $1 trillion to the zombie bankers. Grab a hold of that money and say, guess what, Helicopter Ben? There's now a bill here that's gone through the Congress, and it's overridden Obama's veto, I guess, since that's what you'd have to assume, given his treachery and his complete subservience to Wall Street. Here's a new bill that says you're not allowed to give that $600 billion to the zombie bankers anymore. You're going to put that into the real U.S. commodity-producing, manufacturing, tangible, physical wealth, making stuff economy. And that's going to lead to a recovery. Now, we know what to invest in. The $600 billion or the trillion would be a very substantial down payment on the things we need, the kinds of infrastructure we're going to have to create anyway if human life is going to have a future and economic activity is going to have a future in this part of North America. And that will mean 100 of the most modern nuclear reactors, 100 fourth generation, pebble bed, high temperature nuclear reactors of the most modern type to replace this group of 103 superannuated, obsolete things left over from the pre-Carter era. They're all more than 30 years old. They're all pre-Carter. That's a disaster. And of course it's inefficient, and ultimately it might even be dangerous. But right now it's just mainly uneconomical and a drag on everything else. We need 1,000 hospitals to make up for the ones that were destroyed by the asset strippers, right? By our dear friend Scott down there in Florida with his Hospital Corporation of America, taking nonprofit community hospitals and turning them into for-profit asset stripping operations and then having them go bankrupt. Nice stuff. Wall Street jackals and hyenas. We need 100,000 miles of maglev rail. We've got to basically rebuild an adequate capillary system of transit, getting goods and people from one place to another all around the United States with ample links into Canada, into Mexico, headed into Asia and Europe across the Bering Strait, headed down through the Isthmus of Panama into Latin America, and so forth. 100,000 miles of fast rail and maglev rail. Right now, as you know, our passenger rail is collapsing, our freight rail is collapsing, our commuter rail is collapsing. We've got to do something about that. We've got to rebuild our water systems. We've got to do something about the sewage systems. We've got to rebuild canal and other water management systems. We've got to get back to using canals for bulk transportation, the whole tremendous area of modernization that can go on there. There are the plans, of course, to bring fresh water from the Mackenzie River in Canada down across the Great Basin to deal with these problems of water, right? All these wonderful reactionaries in the Intermountain West there who want to cut budgets. Well, what are you going to be drinking? Where are you going to get a glass of water? How are you going to have agriculture in these areas if you don't pull yourself together and make some huge infrastructural investments? And then, of course, we have the scandal of the interstate highway system built by Eisenhower. Eisenhower, a genius compared to the modern Republican dwarves and zombies and other creatures. Eisenhower saying, well, we don't want to have a return of mass unemployment as we had it in the 1930s, plus we're going to need this highway system, so let's go ahead and build it. Yes, build it, but that's now 50 years ago. It's got to be rebuilt, and it's got to be rebuilt to modern specifications. We have the intercounty connector here north of Washington, D.C. in Montgomery County, which shows what a beautiful engineering job you can do these days, although it took 20 to 30 years of slogging to get that one pushed through in the teeth of every environmentalist lunatic on the planet seemed to concentrate on blocking that road. Anyway, it's being built now, so it is emerging. There is progress. At least progress is available if you fight for it. So Helicopter Ben has his ideas of what to do with the $600 billion. Let's put forward concrete proposals to say, no, halt. Let's commandeer that money. We're rerouting your $600 billion to $1 trillion, Helicopter Ben. You're not going to be able to pour it into this attempt to jack up the prices of bankrupt derivatives. And ultimately what's being done here is, of course, another backdoor bailout of Citibank and Bank of America and the others, right? Some of the others are not far behind. Any of these could blow at just about any time, as the history of the last 2 years shows us. So let's grab a hold of Helicopter Ben $600 billion. Now, the signs are auspicious. We have the debacle of Obama in the G20 last week in South Korea is largely due to a worldwide revulsion against Helicopter Ben and the U.S. Federal Reserve. So let's ride that into some institutional changes. They cough up 0% credit for production.